This tutorial is a beginner's guide to using Android 5 Lollipop on the Samsung Galaxy S5. This should be the same on the Samsung Galaxy S3, S4, S6, and similar for other Android phones. Before we get started with learning Android, we should get familiar with the buttons on the phone. On the right side of the phone is the power button. Pressing this button while the screen is off will turn the phone on for use. If you are already using the phone, you can press this button to lock the phone. If the phone is powered off, holding this button for a few seconds will turn the phone on. On the left side of the phone is the volume button. It appears to be a single button, but it is two buttons. Pressing the top of the button will turn the volume up, and pressing the bottom of the button will turn the volume down. At the bottom of the screen there is only one physical button. This is the home button. If you ever get lost, press this button to get back to the home screen. Recently, Android has replaced the physical buttons with dynamic software buttons. On the left side of the home button is the Recent Apps button. On the right side is the Back button. The Back button is used to move back to the previous screen. The Recent App button is used to open a screen showing tiles of the currently open and recently used apps. When you first turn on the phone, or when you pick it up after not using it for a while, you'll be greeted by the lock screen. The main purpose of the lock screen on a touchscreen phone is to prevent you from calling or doing anything unintentionally. On the lock screen we will see the time and date, the charge level, the status bar, and active app notifications, if any. If we swipe our finger across the screen, we'll see the background move and the screen will unlock. At the bottom of the screen there are two quick access icons for the most commonly used tasks. At the bottom left of the screen is the phone icon. At the bottom right of the screen is the camera icon. To open either app, touch the icon and swipe it up. Let's swipe across the screen to open it. When we first unlock the phone, we will be greeted by the home screen. This is like the desktop on your computer and contains apps and widgets. Widgets are apps that constantly update their information right on the home screen, without having to open the app. Some widgets show the time and date, provide weather information, or quick access to music and playlists. If we look at the bottom of the home screen, we will see a line made up of 6 icons. The second icon from the left is a small house that represents the default home screen. This is the screen that we're looking at now. The 4 dots to the right of the little home are additional screens we can fill and customize with widgets and apps. We can swipe to the left or right to change home screens. As we change the screens, we can see that the highlighted dot changes. We can swipe back to the center home screen, or we can press the home button at the bottom of the phone. Status bar. The status bar is located at the top of the home screen. The right side provides device information like time, battery charge level, and cellular signal strength. The left side provides notification alerts from the system as well as installed apps. At the bottom of the screen is a set of 4 default shortcuts to the most commonly used apps and a link to all the apps installed on the phone. The default shortcuts are Phone, Contacts, Messages, and the Google Chrome Internet Browser. Let's briefly review these 4 basic apps. Phone. Let's touch the Phone app to launch the phone application. At the top of the screen there are 4 separate tabs with the default of keypad selected. Keypad is where you make a call by using the number pad. Enter the number to dial with the keypad. If you make a mistake, you can press the backspace button on the bottom right to delete the last number typed. When you have entered the correct number, you can press the green phone button to make the call. When you are making a call, you will see the following options. Add call. This option is used to make a conference call. After calling your first number, press this button to dial another number to conference in. Keypad. If you need to press a key to dial an extension or something else, you can press the keypad button to open the keypad. When finished, you can press the button again to hide it. Bluetooth. This option will connect the call to a Bluetooth headset or other device to use for making the call. You'll need to have the device already set up for this option to work. Speaker. This turns on the speakerphone feature so you can put your phone down and talk hands-free. The speaker is on the back of the phone, so it is best to place the phone face down on a surface that won't scratch it. This will allow you to hear better. Mute. Mute will block the audio so the person you're calling cannot hear what you're saying. End call. This will disconnect the line and end the call. Recent. The Recent tab shows you a list of the recent phone numbers called on the phone. Here we have a list of the calls made, separated by day. We can select a previous call made from or to the phone, and we can get additional information. Let's touch to select one of the entries. At the left of the screen there is a left-facing arrow, which will bring us back to the previous screen if touched. The top of the screen shows information about the selected contact, like the name, the default phone number, and a picture of the contact. At the bottom of the screen, we have a list of the calls made to or from the selected phone number, showing information like the time and length of call. There is an arrow that faces to the right if the call was outgoing to this number, and faces to the left if the call was incoming from this number. In the middle of the screen, we have two buttons. One is a green phone icon used to call this number. The other orange letter icon is used to send a text message. If the number is not stored in the phone as a contact, there will be two additional buttons in the center of the screen. One says Create Contact and is used to create a new contact with this number. Update Existing is used to add a new number, such as a cell number to an existing home phone number. Let's add this number to the phone as a new contact. Let's touch Create Contact. When the new contact screen opens, it will show the on-screen keyboard in the name field. If you want to close the keyboard to see the screen better, you can touch the back button once. To bring the keyboard back up, touch in one of the data entry fields. At the top of the screen there's a drop-down menu showing the account that the contact will be saved to. Touching the account name will bring up a list of the accounts set up on the phone to choose from. Enter a name for the contact. The number automatically enters into the phone field with the default type of mobile selected. You can press it to bring up the drop-down menu that allows you to select the number as mobile, work, home, main, work fax, home fax, pager, other, or custom. We can enter an email address and physical address for the contact if we want. Below the contact, we can select custom groups and ringtones. At the bottom of the screen, we have the Add Another Field button. Touching this button will bring up the menu allowing us to add additional fields such as phonetic name, used to assist with voice dialing, organization, IM, notes, nickname, website, events, relationship, message tone, and vibration pattern. When we're happy with the information, we can press Save to save the contact. At the top right of the screen, touch the Options button, and then select View Contact. This will open the detailed contact sheet. We can edit any contact information by touching the Edit Content button at the top right of the screen. Contact is frequently contacted. We can add it as a favorite by touching the star-shaped Favorite button. Press the back button on the top left corner of the next two screens to return to the recent screen of the phone app. Favorites. We can see the contact favorite we added earlier. Touching any of the contacts listed in Favorites will immediately begin dialing the contact. We can add additional favorites by touching the Add Favorite button on the bottom right of the screen. We can remove a favorite by touching the Options menu and then selecting Remove from Favorites. Contacts. Here we can see any existing contacts, including the contact we created earlier. We can search through the contacts using the search field, or scroll through the contacts in alphabetical order. Touching any of the contacts will open the detailed contact information. We can phone, text, or edit the contact. Let's exit back out to the home screen by pressing the Home button on the phone. Contacts. We have already covered adding a contact from the phone app, but we can also directly enter the Contacts app to create new contacts, update existing ones, and call or message a contact. We can see that this brings us back to the contact screen in the phone app that we saw earlier. Let's press the Home button again to exit the app. Messaging. Messaging is the default app used to send text messages. These are not email messages, but instead SMS text messages sent directly to another cell phone number. Let's click on the Messages app to open it. If you send just text, it is called an SMS or Short Message System text. If you add a picture or use more than 160 characters, it uses the MMS or Multimedia Messaging Service. Text conversations show up below, listed by number or contact name. We can create a new text message from here by clicking the New Message button at the bottom right of the screen. In the Enter Recipient field, we can enter one or more phone numbers or contacts by touching to select it. We can enter the phone number directly, or if we already have the number saved as a contact, we can enter the contact's name. The default keyboard only has letters on it. To be able to enter numbers, we need to click on the 123 SIM button in the bottom left corner. If we don't see the symbol we want on this screen, we can select the 1 of 2 button to show the other symbol keyboard. As we type out the contact's name, it will show a list of only the contacts that match. Once we see the contact we want to add, we can touch it to autocomplete the name. If we enter the wrong name, we can remove it by touching the red minus sign. If we touch the contact name itself, we get a new menu allowing us to view the contact in the Contacts app, or edit the number associated with the contact in the Recipients field. If we want to close the keyboard without making any changes, we can touch the back button on the phone. We can also add recipients by touching the Add Contact button. In the Contacts window, we select the contact we want to add by touching the contact to select it. This places a check in the box. When we finish making our selections, we select the Done button on the top right of the screen. At the bottom of the screen, we have the Enter Message section. Touch to select it and open the keyboard. Enter the message. Notice that as we type, we'll see the number of characters we have left in the message out of the 160. We can create a text with more than 160 characters. It will just auto-convert to an MMS text. To the left of the message is a smiley face button that will allow us to add emojis to the text. We can scroll up and down through the available emojis, or scroll left and right to see the different emoji categories. When we find the emoji we want to add, we'll touch to select it. Touching the Add Emoji button again will close the menu. We can add an attachment to the text message by touching the Add Attachment button. This looks like a small paperclip. We can add an image, video, or audio file we have already taken. We also have the option to take picture, record video, or record audio, and then share it through the text message. We can share memo items, calendar items, contacts, and maps. One of the features I find really helpful is the My Location option. This adds a link to the text linking to a Google map showing your location. This is a great way to provide information to someone on how to get to you, especially if you're not at a physical address. We'll touch Image. It wants to complete the action using the Gallery app and lists the other possible apps to use. Select the Gallery app. With the Gallery app selected, select Always so that it defaults to this app in the future. Touch OK. The Gallery app opens to the Album screen. Select the album you want to open. Scroll through the pictures and then select one or more of them by touching the image. This will place a green check mark on the image. It also shows the number of images selected in each album. When finished, touch the Done button. Previously it showed the number of characters we had left in the 160 character text under the Send button. Now it shows the size of the text. In this case, it's 1005 kilobytes, or just under 1 megabyte. When everything is set, touch the Send button. Press the back button to close the on-screen keyboard. As text messages are sent to or from the phone, they will show in the central panel on the screen. The text messages sent from your phone show on the right side, and text messages sent to your phone appear on the left. As the conversation grows, old messages will fall off the viewable part of the screen to make room for the new. The newest message will appear on the bottom of the screen. We can return to the main messages screen by using the phone's back button, or by touching the back button next to the contact name. All text messages are fully searchable using the search button located in the top right of the screen. Touching the search button brings up the search field and on-screen keyboard. We will enter a search term and press the search button on the keyboard. This will group together all individual texts containing the search term for all conversations. Exit the screen by using the back button to the left of the search field. To the right of the search button is the menu button. Touching this will bring up the menu for the Messages app. Here we can access options such as deleting text, locking messages, saving messages to a file on your phone, changing the font size, and settings. Let's touch the Settings button. I won't cover this in any detail. I just want you to be aware that this is where you find all the available settings for your Messages app. Touch the back button to return to the Messages main screen. Priority Senders. At the top of the screen, under the Search and Menu buttons, is the button that says Tap to add priority senders. Priority senders are used to mark your favorite contacts. You can then get to the text conversation with those favorite contacts with just a touch instead of having to scroll and search. To add a priority sender, touch the Tap to add priority senders button. In the lower portion of the screen under Recommended, it will show your most common contacts as suggestions for who to add as a priority sender. We can add a recommended option by touching the green plus sign to the right of the entry. The Inbox button opens the contacts from your text messages inbox to add. Touch the back button on your phone to go back without adding any. Let's touch the Contacts button. This will open up the Contacts app with empty boxes to the left of each entry. Scroll through the list until we get to the contact to add. If the contact has more than one contact number, such as mobile and home, it will open a menu asking us to make a selection. After selecting the number, select either just once if you want to check with every time, or select Mark as default if you want it to always default to this choice for this contact. When we've finished, touch the Done button. Now we can see our newly added Priority Center at the top of the screen. Now the button we used to create the Priority Center has been replaced with a new button to the right of our selection. Use this to add additional Priority Centers. To remove a Priority Center, long touch, or touch and hold the entry to remove. This brings up a red minus sign on each entry. Touching this red minus sign will remove the Priority Center status. Touch the Done button to exit without making any changes. Touch the Home button on the phone to exit the messaging app and return to the home screen on the phone. The default web browser to explore the internet used to be the Android browser. With the update to Android 5.0 Lollipop, this has been changed to Google's Chrome browser. The internet can be launched by touching the Chrome browser app icon. If the Chrome shortcut is missing, it can be launched from the app screen. The browser will open to the home page, which by default is google.com. The top of the screen is the browser bar that contains controls. The left button that looks like a little house is the Home button. This is a customizable button that opens your favorite web page when touched. In the center is the address bar. This shows the current web page, which in this case is google.com. If we know the web page we want to visit, we touch the address bar to bring up the on-screen keyboard to enter the address manually. Enter the web page. In this case, we will test using the website for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. We'll enter noaa.gov and touch the Go button. Just to the right of the address bar is the Tabs button. Tabs allow us to have more than one page open in the web browser at a time. If we want to keep this page open so we can return to it, but we want to open a new web page, touch the Tabs button. This will minimize the current web pages into a list of scrollable windows. We can open any of the web pages and make it full screen by touching the window. We can close any of the pages by touching the Close button, which is an X at the top right of the window. If we accidentally close the tile, it shows an Undo button briefly after closing the tab. We can add a new tab to open a new web page by touching the Add Tab button in the top left of the screen. This will open a new tab full screen. At the top left of the screen is a Home button we can use to open our home page. In the middle of the screen, we can search Google by text with a text field, or voice with the Record Audio button. This field is also used to enter a URL to visit a website. You could enter noaa.gov, and it will open the web page just like it did earlier when we entered it in the address bar. As the phone is used, it will show the most commonly visited websites in small tiles at the bottom. Touching any of the tiles will open that web page full screen. At the bottom of the screen there are two buttons. On the left is a Favorites button that will open our favorites from Chrome. Let's back out using the phone's back button. On the right side is the History button. These are the most recently closed Chrome tabs. We can open any of these tabs by touching the tile. Under this is a button that says Show Full History. Touching this button opens a complete history of the web pages visited in chronological order. We can remove individual history items by touching the X Close button next to the entry. We can also remove all of our browsing history from memory by touching the Clear Browsing Data button. We can then delete the browsing history, cache, and cookie site data by touching the Clear button. Let's exit without making any changes by touching the Cancel button. This is the privacy screen for the device. Press the back button again to return to the Chrome history page. We can search the history web page titles using the Search History field. Touch the back button again to return to the history page. If you're logged in with a Google account on multiple devices using Chrome, you can open web pages you are viewing on other devices. This will list under the recently closed section under a heading such as Nexus 7. Press the back button to return to the new tab screen. Let's touch to open one of the web pages. If we scroll up on the page, we'll see that the address bar disappears. If the address bar is not showing, just scroll up to the top of the page. On the right of the browser bar is the menu button. The menu has 3 buttons at the top. The left button is the forward button, used to move forward to the next web page visited. This is for when you use the back button too many times. The center button is the favorites button. If it has a black outline with a white center, the current web page is not saved as a favorite. The Add Bookmark screen opens with the default information filled in. By default, it wants to save the favorite to the last folder you saved a favorite. Change any information, if you want to, and touch the Save button. The right button is the Reload button. The Reload button refreshes the current page by downloading a fresh copy with updated information. New tab. This opens a new tab to the new tab screen we saw earlier. New Incognito tab. This opens a new tab, but unlike the other tabs we have seen, this is an incognito tab. When pages are viewed in incognito tabs, the browser history, cookies, and search history won't be saved. An example of when to use incognito tabs would be if you share a device with somebody else and you're shopping for a present for them. The information is deleted when you have closed all of the incognito tabs. Let's touch the Tabs button. It shows us the open tiles for each web page like we saw earlier, but now we have incognito tabs on the right and normal tabs on the left. In addition to closing a tab using the Close button in the top right of a tab, we can also touch the tile and sweep it to the left. Bookmarks. This opens the bookmark screen that we saw earlier. Recent tabs. This opens the Recent Tabs section of the History screen. History. This will open the Chrome history showing the websites visited. Share. The Share button is used to share the URL for the current web page. This means it'll send a link that can be clicked on to open the current web page you're on. Touch the Share button to open the Share Via menu. Here we can scroll through all of the compatible apps and sharing methods we can use. Most common sharing methods will likely be Gmail to send it by email, and Messages if you want to send it by text. We'll touch Gmail. We can see that it opened the Gmail app and entered the URL for the web page. We then just need to enter our recipient and touch the Send button. If we have already used the Share feature, we'll see the last app used to share that we can touch to bypass the selection next time. Print. This is used to print the current web page using a physical printer. We can see a preview of what will print out on the bottom. At the top, we can adjust the number of copies or paper type. There is not a printer setup, and the default option is to save as PDF. This will not print the document, but instead save a copy of the web page as a PDF document stored as a file on the device. This is useful for saving digital copies of receipts. If you have a printer installed, you should see it listed. If it is not listed, touch to select Save as PDF at the top of the screen. Touch the All Printers button. This will scan any connected networks for printers to install. We'll touch the back button to return. The selected print device will show at the top, and we can print by selecting the print button. We'll press the back button. Find in page. This button brings up a search field used to search through the text of the current web page. After entering the word, it brings you to the first example of that word on the page. We can then use the next button to move to the next entry, or the back button to move back to the previous example. We'll touch the close button to exit. Add to home screen. This will add a shortcut to the first available home screen that will open Chrome to the current web page. It can save you time by opening Chrome and opening a specific website with a single touch. Request desktop site. Most modern websites have mobile versions that are optimized for mobile platforms. For the most part, these work very well, but sometimes there is something missing or not working right, and you need to get that full desktop version. Selecting this option will place a check in the box showing that this feature is enabled. This setting applies only to the current website on the current tab. This setting is not persistent when you close the tab. This means that you will need to enable this every time you come to this website if you want to see the desktop version. Settings. This opens the settings screen for Chrome. Here you can edit the accounts set up on the phone, and set up an additional one if you want. There are also additional settings that you might want to review. We'll press the back button. Help and feedback. Here you can search for help articles if you run into trouble or have questions. Let's touch the home button. Apps. Let's touch the apps icon to open up the app screen. This lists all the apps installed on the device in alphabetical order. Some of the apps are installed as part of Android, some by the manufacturer, and some you installed yourself. At the bottom of the screen, there are 6 dots, with the left one highlighted. Swipe the screen to move through the available apps. The device starts off in alphabetical order. If you install any new apps on the phone, they will show up at the very end of the list. We can launch any of the apps by touching them. We can also create a shortcut to the app on one of the home screens to quickly launch the app in the future without coming back to this app screen. To do this, touch and hold the app. This will open up the home screen to allow you to place the app. If you drag your finger to either side of the screen, it'll scroll through the available screens. When we find a screen that we want, we just need to place the icon and let it go. If we want to move the icon, we can touch and hold it again and place it in a new location. We can also delete app shortcuts from the home screen by touching and holding it, and then dragging it to remove. Let's open back up the app screen. If you want to just see the apps that you have downloaded to the device, and not the ones installed by the manufacturer, you can touch the menu button, and then select Downloaded Apps. Touch the back button in the top left to return to the app screen. Touch the menu button, and select Uninstall Disable Apps. We can now press the red minus sign next to an app to uninstall it. Notice that some of the apps do not have the uninstall button. These are either built-in Android apps, or they are installed by the wireless carrier and cannot be uninstalled, unless you jailbreak your phone. Let's touch the back button to exit without making any changes. Let's exit the app screen by touching the home button. Recent apps. We open up Recent Apps by touching the Recent Apps button to the left of the home button. Here we have tiles of recent apps saved at the last known state. We can scroll through the available apps if there are too many to see all at once. We can open any of the running apps by touching the tile. We can close out of a running app by swiping the tile to the left or right. Android also features a Task Manager app. Task Manager is used to view the active applications and RAM status. We can open Task Manager by touching the Task Manager button at the bottom left of the screen. Task Manager opens to the active application screen. RAM status. RAM status shows the total amount of RAM available to the apps, which in this case is 1.66 gigabytes, and the amount currently being used, which in this case is 1.30 gigabytes. Active Applications lists the apps that are actively running. This is different than the apps we saw earlier on the Recent Apps screen. Those apps just had their state saved so you can quickly return to it later. The active applications are ones that are actually running on the device. This means that they are using power to access the CPU, RAM, and other hardware. We can see the total number of running apps next to active applications, with each application listed individually below. Each app shows the RAM and CPU usage. We can close out of an individual app by touching the End button. If we want to close out of all the apps at the same time, we can press the End All button. Let's touch the back button. Let's touch the Recent Apps button. We might have expected to see no apps listed in Recent Apps, since we ended task on them earlier, but all our recent apps are still listed here. We only ended task on the active applications. Everything showing here now is just for quick access, but is not wasting CPU, RAM, or battery. If we touch Task Manager again, we will see that there are 0 active applications. If we open one of the apps listed in Recent Apps like Chrome, touch the Recent Apps button again, touch Task Manager, we will see that it is again active. Most apps will close down automatically after a period of non-use. Touch the Home button to exit Recent Apps. Quick Settings and Notification menu. The Quick Settings and Notification menu is accessed by dragging your finger down from the top of the screen. The top of the screen are the Quick Settings icons. By default, there are 5 icons we can see along with 5 more when we swipe left. Any of the quick settings that are enabled will have a green image. Any of them that are disabled will show with a dull gray. Touching any of the quick settings will enable or disable them. Touching the location setting, for instance, will turn on the GPS on the device. Touching the location setting will turn off the GPS on the device. If you aren't using it, this is a great way to save battery. In the middle of the screen is the brightness control bar. This controls the brightness of the screen. You can manually drag the slider to the right to get brighter, or to the left to get duller. If you prefer, you can also set auto mode, and the screen brightness will change based on the available light. It will get darker automatically if you go outside, and dim automatically if it's in the dark. At the bottom of the screen is the notifications section. The notifications that show here provide alerts or updated information that may need attention, such as new text messages, email, missed phone calls, and other information from Android or from the installed apps. Here we can see a notification that we received a new email. We can touch the message to open it in the Gmail app. Any notification can be touched to open the app or settings screen that needs attention. You can swipe any of the individual entries to the left or right of the screen to close it out. Or you can clear all of the messages at the same time with the Clear button. In the top right of the screen, we have the All Quick Settings button. Let's touch this button. This detailed view shows all the quick settings icons available. Touch the button in the top right again to return to the notification screen. Let's touch the Settings button in the top right of the screen to open the detailed settings screen. Here we have all the available system settings arranged by category. There are a lot of settings that are available here for review that we'll not be covering here today. As tutorials become available, I'll link to them here. To close out of the Quick Settings and Notification menu, you can press the back button, or you can swipe the screen from the bottom up. Press the Home button to return to the home screen. Google Play Store. The Google Play Store is used to download and install new apps, games, movies and TV shows, music, books, and newspapers. The default layout has the Play Store icon on the default home screen. If you don't have it here, or removed it, you can open it by touching Apps, and then finding and touching Play Store to launch it. The default Play Store screen shows categories of highlighted items promoted by the Play Store at the bottom. At the top of the screen is the search field we can use to search through all available Play Store content. If we want to browse or search by just a single category, we can select it at the top. The options to choose from are apps, games, movies and TV, music, books, and newsstand. Let's touch the Select Apps. At the bottom are apps that we might find interesting. At the top of the screen we have categories like Top Paid, Top Free, and more. Selecting these will show only the apps in that category. We can select the categories either by swiping left or right on the categories, and then touching them, or by swiping left or right in the middle of the screen. Selecting Top Free will show the most downloaded apps that are available for free. We can scroll through the list by swiping the screen up to show more apps. Let's click on the search icon at the top right to search the Apps section of the Google Play Store. The on-screen keyboard will open at the bottom to enter the search terms. We will search for an audio editor here. To review how to install a new app. This now shows the available apps that meet the search terms. If we change our mind and really wanted to search in another field, we can touch the Apps category and then select from the options in the menu. We'll touch one of the audio editor apps listed for review. This will open the app screen. We can find information here like the name of the app, the software developer, the number of downloads, the average user rating and number of votes, and the category. Just below this information, we will find a partial description of the app. We can view the complete description by touching the Read More link. Here we can see the partial description we saw earlier, as well as a more thorough description and app feature set. At the very bottom, we can find contact information for the developer. Touch the X button to close out of the detailed description. Below the description, we will see screenshot thumbnails that we can swipe left and right through. Touching a thumbnail will open a full screen version of the thumbnail for review. Press the back button. Below the screenshots is the rating with the individual reviews. Touching the rating, any of the reviews, or the All Reviews link at the bottom will open the All Reviews screen. The All Reviews screen shows a detailed view of the rating. We have the average user rating, which is 3.6 out of 5. This rating is the average of 10,974 reviews. Below this it breaks down the rating by number of 5-star down to 1-star reviews. At the bottom of the detailed reviews screen it lists the reviews by default with the most helpful first. Touch the current sort criteria to open the Sort Reviews menu. In addition, we have the option to sort by newest first, or by highest rating first. Touch the back button to exit the sort menu. Touch the options link on the right. There are two helpful options here. Latest version only. This displays the reviews for the latest version of the app only. This can help you figure out if the app is getting better or worse, or if they have addressed old issues. From this device model only. This will only display reviews from others with the same device as you. When I tick this, it will only show reviews from others with a Samsung Galaxy S5. This is great to find out if the app works appropriately on your device and to help determine solutions to problems. From here we can also rate the reviews to help others find the most useful ones and the ones to avoid. Touch the Mark Comment button at the top right of the review to rate. We have the option to mark the comment as helpful, unhelpful, or spam. Touch the Cancel button to exit. Touch the back button to exit the All Reviews screen. Below the reviews we have three buttons. Wish List. This adds the app to your wish list. This is the most useful for apps that cost money that you wish to purchase in the future. If the app is free, you can just download it instead of wishing for it. Share. This doesn't share the actual app, but instead a link to the app. +1. Here we can show our support for the app by touching the button to +1 the app. Below this we have categories that feature other apps by the same developer and apps similar to the one we're currently reviewing. At the bottom of the screen we have a developer section. Here we have a link to send email to the developer. Permission details. If we want to review the permissions needed to install the app, we can select the Permissions Details button. Touch the back button. If you come across an app you think violates human decency, you can mark it to be reviewed by Google, and if they find it violates policy, they will remove it from the Play Store. To mark it as inappropriate, touch the Flag as Inappropriate button. Scroll back up to the top of the screen, and touch the Install button. We see a list of the items that this app will need to access to function properly. It's always good to review this and make sure it doesn't want access to more than it needs. If you're installing an alarm clock and it wants access to all your contacts and images, you might have a problem. Touch the Accept button to install the app. Let's launch the newly installed app. We could launch the app by touching the Open button. I want to demonstrate how to launch the app in the future, so for now touch the Home button on the phone. When we install an app, it will place a shortcut for it on the first available home screen. Swiping left, we will see the shortcut for our newly created app. If we can't find the shortcut, or it gets deleted in the future, we can always access it by... After launching, we'll find the app in alphabetical order. Touch the app to open it. Touch the Home button to exit the app screen. Manage home screens. We can change the wallpaper, add widgets, or change the home screen settings through the Manage Home Screens interface. To access Manage Home Screens, pinch the screen. You can also find an empty place on the screen, and touch and hold it. In the center of the screen we have thumbnails of the home screens. There are 5 home screens by default. The home screen furthest to the left is the default home screen. This means that when we press the Home button on the phone, it will open this default home screen. We can tell this is the default home screen because the mini icon associated with this screen looks like a home instead of a square like the others. It also has the home image at the top of the screen filled in white. If we swipe to one of the other home screens, we can see that it's gray. We can change any of the other home screens to the default home screen by touching the Home button on the top. Swipe all the way to the left until we get to the last blank screen with a plus sign in it. To create a new home screen to place additional apps and widgets, touch the new home screen. The screens can be rearranged by touching and holding, and then dragging it to a new location. We can also remove one of the screens by touching and holding the screen, and then dragging it to remove. At the bottom of the screen there are three options available. Wallpapers. Wallpapers allows us to set an image as the background on our home screen and lock screen. Let's touch the Select Wallpapers. At the top of the screen is a drop-down menu that allows us to set the image as the wallpaper for the home screen only, the lock screen, or the home screen and lock screen. There are built-in images that we can set as the wallpaper. The image in the far left is a link to the images stored on the device. It shows a thumbnail of one of the images stored on the device with the words "From Gallery" on it. Touch this tile to open the picture album to select an image stored on the device. We'll select the camera album. Touch the image to select it as the wallpaper. The image will open with an overlay showing what part of the image will show when it's in portrait and landscape modes. We can touch and hold the corner to drag it and adjust the size. Move the image around until it's where you want it. And touch the Save button. After selecting the image, touch the Select Set as Wallpaper. It will move back to the home screen and set the new wallpaper. Pinch the screen again to bring up Manage Home Screens. Widgets. Let's touch to select Widgets. Widgets are tiles that can be placed on the home screen that show dynamically updated information from an app installed on the device. Widgets can show clock and weather, email messages, calendar information, and quick settings and controls. By looking at the bottom of the screen, we can see that there are lots of available screens showing installed widgets. Many apps you will install will come with widgets to show you the most recent information without having to open the app. Let's add a winter widget to the home screen. Touch and hold the widget. Move it around on the screen, and then release. After we release the widget, we will see an orange border with a dot on each side. We can use these to change the size of the widget on screen. Touching outside the widget will place it on the screen. Any of the widgets and icons can be rearranged as we saw earlier. Pinch the screen again to bring up Manage Home Screens. Home Screen Settings. Touch Home Screen Settings for available options. Transition Effect. Touch Transition Effect. The default effect is Card Stack. We can select 3D Rotation and see a preview of the effect. Press the back button. My Magazine. My Magazine is a customizable news provided in a magazine format on the home screen. My Magazine is accessed by swiping all the way to the right on the home screens. Press the Home button to exit the Manage Home Screens and return to the default home screen. Thank you for watching this tutorial. If you found the content useful, it would be appreciated if you would give this video a thumbs up. If you want to see more of this type of content, please show your support by subscribing. Both of these will help this channel stand out on YouTube.